Right.
This is Senate Transportation, and we are going back live with Damian Leonard from Ledge Council, and we are going to finish up today, at least today's piece on S211.
Great. Good morning. For the record, I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So as I think was commented on during the earlier testimony, this is a pretty straightforward bill, at least in terms of what's written on the page. And it really shifts the vehicle inspection requirement from once each year to once every 2 years. And then it would update the charge from $8 to $16. And you heard a lot of testimony from DMV earlier as to how that would impact their finances because of the sort of staggered nature of the inspections between new and existing vehicles. The transition period there, so this language, when Senator White and I worked on this language, we set the default date of July 1, 2026, knowing that it would probably need to change. So that date could be updated to January 1, 26, January 1, 28, whatever becomes appropriate.
I think we can't do it January 1, 26.
I'm sorry, January 1, 27.
I think that's a little,
Wow.
I think 27, but
Fair enough. Yep. And
I'm not sure retroactively.
I'll see myself out.
Not that easily.
So the bigger legal questions here really come with the question of how does this so there's the big policy issue of should we keep safety inspection, should they be every 2 years, the enforcement issues that you raised, some of the procedural and sort of operational issues like stickers, color of the stickers, where they're located on the windshield. As I learned this morning, the adhesive of the stickers and how long that lasts. So there are a number of issues there. From a legal standpoint, there's also an issue of federal preemption on the emissions inspection. So currently, Vermont has submitted a plan to the EPA as part of our air quality implementation plan. So we've submitted part of our state implementation plan is around inspection and maintenance of motor vehicles. And that ties in directly to Vermont's current annual inspection process where we do emissions inspection. We are in what's called an ozone transport region for purposes of the Clean Air Act. And because we are in the ozone transport region, we are required to have a state implementation plan. And part of that plan is the inspection and maintenance program. So you likely have heard that New Hampshire, our neighbors to the east, who are also in the ozone transport region, recently repealed their annual inspection requirement. They got rid of the inspection requirement altogether. They have currently been sued by the maker of their emissions inspection testing equipment. And I think that lawsuit has been joined by a group representing inspection mechanics or inspection stations. But the lawsuit hinges on whether or not they get a waiver from their EPA requirement. And they have applied as of November 5th of last year. They had a release on the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services website stating that they are currently in the process of asking EPA to eliminate the inspection and maintenance requirement from their state implementation plan. It's not clear if that will happen or how quickly it will happen, but if the EPA approves that, then the lawsuit, as I understand it, and I have not closely reviewed the papers in the lawsuit, but my understanding is contingent on whether or not that's there, because the main claim is that they're in violation of the Clean Air Act. So this is something that you need to look into. DEC would likely need to come in and speak to the issue, and it may be something where, looking at the implementation date going forward, you may want to push out that implementation date if you want to allow time to request the waiver, or you can do the New Hampshire approach of repeal it now and ask for permission after the fact. So
Is our plan been adopted?
So I was looking on the EPA's website for approved air quality implementation plans, and I do not see the inspection and maintenance portion of the SIP on the website. I don't know how frequently it's updated, and I don't know what the
think our
status
SIP has
is.
been approved for, I don't know, a decade.
Yeah, so there are a variety of documents here. Many of them date back to the last decade. I see.
We can have one DC, because when we talked to DEC about this before, they at that time, which is maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, they were saying, "Oh, we think our SIP's going to finally get approved, and don't do this because it might jeopardize our SIP being approved." But I thought I heard that they still haven't got approval.
Yeah, I don't see any approvals from the 2020s here. I see, and with motor vehicles, the last approvals I see are from 1980.
Yeah.
Actually, my birthday.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that on
But yeah, my understanding that since it hasn't been approved part of the plan, we wouldn't be in violation, but we could submit a new plan that doesn't include it. And that can also be under review for the next 20 years.
But I think it is, you know,
We could, DEC.
Yeah, they would be better
we
experts on
got,
this.
we've got to get that. It would be it would be interesting if there was somebody that could talk us through what's happened in New Hampshire and what they're, I really don't understand the inspection, the on the ground system. I do know they plug the car in, they have the whole electronic system that is there. Does that get affected by going to 2 years?
So
I hadn't even thought about that until you just talked.
yeah, it's a good question. I have not had a chance to read the 119-page SIP
Because
on
it's down
inspection and maintenance.
what you said I clicked in my mind when you said New Hampshire in the inspection stations. I think we paid for the equipment to go in the inspection stations.
So
And I think that's right. But if we didn't pay for all of it,
they had to pay for the tablet. They might have had to.
No, I think the inspection station paid for the tablet.
We required them to pay for
It was
it.
like $1,000 or something, because they put up a big,
see, I don't understand all of exactly what that is. And if the inspection stations are suing in New Hampshire, does that mean they're suing to get back their money for,
Yeah, so I don't know their specific interests in the case. I think with the equipment maker, likely they're losing out on ongoing revenue from replacement, maintenance, and supply of equipment. And with the inspection stations, it's likely if they've joined the suit, which I think is what I had heard, it's likely they're arguing that they're harmed.
there's
because they lose
somebody
business.
from that we could talk to that understands this from New Hampshire?
I think we could certainly reach out to them. I don't know a specific person off the top of my head, but it looks like their Department of Environmental Services is the group that is reaching out to EPA on the Clean Air Act end. And I can see if I can get Megan some additional contact information, but I'm not sure who the person would be. I expect
And
you
who's
probably
the
want.
expert at BEC on this?
I will find out. I'll talk to our attorneys in-house.
Okay.
I know I've been working internally with Ellen Tchaikovsky from our office, who's works on the Clean Air Act issues for us, and I'll ask her who her counterpart would be over at DEC.
Yeah, it used to be Megan, but she's gone.
So thanks. So question about just comparisons between Vermont and New Hampshire. And this might be a question for you, is there a way, I know it can be done, but it would be really helpful to have a list of all of the most relevant items. So inspections, but also registration, and know what New Hampshire's doing, what Vermont's doing, New York, Massachusetts, just the four.
I think you're talking to him.
Am I talking to you? I
But
think
you're
it
talking
might be a
to-
JFO thing, but
Well,
just to have all that information would just be really helpful to have. in one-
you're looking for a breakdown of what the requirements are in our New England and New York
I want the
region.
rates, the dollars.
Well, the dollars Logan's gonna,
That's what I was
we
thinking.
need a fiscal note for
Yeah.
Logan.
Yeah,
Yeah, so Logan can address internal fiscal issues. Either one of us can pull up statutory rates for you. It will take some time, and we do have a lot on our plates right now. So I just want to, note that I have numerous drafts, both your motor vehicle bill and the T-bill, which are being introduced simultaneously, that I'm working on, and I know Logan's working on fiscal notes for each of these, or fiscal analysis for each of these pieces that comes in, but we can try to pull that together. I know you have, you have to introduce this bill this week, but then you'll be able to continue working on it, and so we could put this together, with enough lead time.
Yeah.
I just can't promise.
No, and I wouldn't,
This-
I wasn't thinking that you would be
Yeah.
the one who would pull that together, because it's really the financial stuff.
Yeah,
Well, Logan is gonna have to do, and part of when she came in, if we need on the record, but what she said this morning about,
I came in at the end of that.
but
That was not,
she didn't, she verbally talked about, but it would be helpful to have it down on paper or, someplace so we can post what she did, and then behind it, a fiscal note from Joint Fiscal talking about those pieces.
yeah. So just to note, the ozone transport region for purposes of the Clean Air Act is New England, and then down to the Mid-Atlantics, as far south as Maryland and Virginia. So it's sort of the northeastern
In the
quadrant.
states that have eliminated inspections, what are they doing for alternatives to emissions at inspection?
So it really varies. My understanding is that at last count, and I don't know if this includes New Hampshire or not, Kelly Blue Book had, as of last year, said that 29 states require emissions inspections.
Yeah.
And I think Senator White testified earlier today that roughly half of states require safety inspections. Is that right?
Well, I just wanted to say, Vermont UVM, their students did a whole study on this exact topic, and it was published in December, which actually breaks down all of what they do. So I hope that you won't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I asked Megan to post it. But yeah, there are 15 states that have every year safety inspections, and also do, and this is where I don't know, biennial I believe is every 2 years. So, okay, so there are 15 states that have biennial and emissions tests along with
Right.
no safety inspections.
Yeah, and it's worth noting too that there are also some states where the emissions testing is only in certain counties.
Yeah.
Just
Uh,
they just haven't.
Right, so it's a metropolitan
What would be
statistical areas.
interesting,
Yeah,
what would be interesting to see is those states that don't have inspections that are part of the 30-odd states.
but
There
that do
must be,
emissions.
but there must be some of your 29 that do have emissions. So if we can isolate the states that don't have inspections but still have emission standards, what are they doing? They must have an answer to the question.
Yeah, and UVM did a whole study on this exact question. And so I had 2 copies printed to come to us, but I can have one for everyone.
That's great, because if we had that and we can isolate, we could find out what those states are doing, because they must have a bad.
Yeah,
And when you said 15 states have a biennial, I think of 15 states have biennial or annual, like there's some have annual, some have biennial.
so it says, so here we go. What it says in the report is states with emissions testing. So they found that 27 states have some form of legislation that require vehicle emission testing, and it varies. And then it looks like, I think this is from, we're gonna have to read it because there's emissions.
Who
There's
wrote the
15
report at UVM?
Transportation center.
It's from, the title of it is the Legislative Research Service. So,
Could
Yeah.
we get
Because I think
them
NCLS did,
for half an hour and talk about the report?
I think NCLS has done work. on it.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, what did
Yeah.
they do? Did they say the acronym?
yeah, you said LS.
Okay.
but it looks like
Yeah.
15 of the 27 states that have annual requirements for safety inspections also have an emissions test.
But it's like, that's not statewide.
Possibly.
Sometimes it's just like,
They call out a special list of folks as well.
sometimes it's just that they are pushing only that in their metropolitan area, so the rest of the state doesn't have to do emissions.
Yeah, 22 of 27 states only require emissions testing in counties that include or surround major metropolitan areas. Most of those areas are designated as non-attainment counties or NAPWAs.
Can
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
track down
I've lived in one of those.
either the UVM report or from NCSL and we should probably get a few minutes where they can highlight what states have done.
Yeah, so I'm seeing.
I-
Great.
I think it would be good to get either the UVM report and get somebody in here for, we don't have to spend forever on it, but if they've done a report, they can highlight the report to us and we can isolate those states and we can at least have a conversation based upon, because there has to be a path here and there. Someone else's tread.
Yeah, so the report is up on the committee webpage right now.
Yep.
And then Megan, do you have a contact with the Legislative
I'm about
Research
to.
Service? Great.
Perfect.
So that would be my best recommendation, and then I will dig into the data that's in the report and
Yep.
start looking at the
And I don't
laws,
think
but
you know, I say this for Megan, I don't think we need to have, this is not an all morning thing, but I think they can give the highlights to us in a half an hour. And then we can figure out who we might talk to based upon that.
right, and I'll plan to email Megan information on the DEC contact person. And I'll see if I can find any information on New Hampshire. It may just be reaching out to the commissioner's office and asking them for someone.
Mr. Chair, I'm wondering, I know you said we were gonna have a hearing potentially on this.
I think,
So I guess when you said hearing, do you mean a public hearing? Because that would be, I think if we scheduled that, that would be.
yeah, we have this, I see no way that we can move ahead with this without scheduling a public.
Maybe we could do it with our house friends as well. That would be-
There are several bills in the House as well, including a 2-year inspection bill.
Oh,
So I think,
I think you're right.
pretty,
I know
pretty
there's-
sure that got introduced. So, yeah,
If we're gonna move the bill, regardless of what anybody else does, I think I'm, depending on what, DEC puts forward, in here. And depending on, I'm, more interested in seeing if natural resources would be at a hearing with us. Because I don't want them standing up on the floor and questioning. I want the committee across the hall, and I suspect there'll be people at a hearing that might be interested in the emissions piece.
Did you all talk this morning about just the impact on the EMBA of not having inspections? Okay, so that's something we need to talk about.
Mhm.
I asked that question.
yep, and I think your next witness is Patrick Murphy, who can also speak to that issue.
Mhm. Yeah. But, we're gonna have to talk about timing of the hearing.
I have a phone for Mike Matt if you want it.
For who?
Mike Matt, did I give you that name?
That's not bad.
What's the, Megan, what's the time when we post the hearing? How long does,
I think you have to do it a week in advance.
can you check that out for us?
Yes, on the document that I wrote.
You,
I don't
but you know where to find it.
I know, I have.
Is there a night,
At least a week.
is there a night of the week that's, better for members of the committee?
Probably
Not
depends on the
Thursday.
week,
Not the-
maybe Wednesday.
Of next week?
Or the week after, but I'm just asking, is there a night that's totally out for anyone?
This is where.
Well, just a suggestion, Wednesday night's farmer's night and it's
Oh yeah, that's true.
parking wise and stuff, so. Wednesday.
Do we want to do it? Well, yeah,
Thursday sometime during.
Yeah.
And then Tuesdays we have chairs, but.
But chairs meeting, only goes till 10.
Yeah.
And I would think, particularly if, you have people that are working.
Yeah.
We probably don't want to start at 6 to 8 would be better.
Yeah, 6 to 8 on Tuesday. If you tell us what Thursday, we can.
Okay.
So this would be a public hearing that people sign. Anybody can sign.
Yep, anybody sign up for it.
And we don't comment, we just take,
We, okay,
we input.
yeah, but
Anybody that sign up.
Oh, you could.
Yeah.
I thoroughly expect when we figure out from DEC what that all looks like, that that it may be twofold. You may have people asking about or commenting about the environmental piece, and we'll
What is that?
probably
So
most likely have a lot of people show up that
And this one's for inspection.
will be from the
Yeah.
inspection station.
That's without S266.
It's 266, it's inspected, that's, wait a minute,
That's something in natural resources.
Hero,
So,
yeah, Hero.
at some point,
So.
today, Damien.
Health job
Mhm.
Other thing we're going to need from you
to me.
is a framework for the section by section of the miscellaneous D&D bill.
Wetlands.
I think other than
Yeah.
hearing back on the two sections dealing with licenses and restrictions, other than hearing back from your committee, I feel pretty confident that we're ready to go.
Yeah.
But we want to
Sure.
hear back from you, particularly if there was a suggestion about some language changes.
Yes. And I
Right.
talked to the folks in the hall, and so we're gonna schedule a time for them to come in. I don't know what we're not taking possession, we're just,
But
talking
if
about
you
it
give
and
us some
responding.
language, we can tuck it in here.
okay,
And if anybody said anything, we can get the chair of institutions to stand up on the floor and say, you took,
sure,
that committee took it up.
got it.
Yeah, with respect to the issue identified on the language issue, I've been speaking internally. If their concern is about, providing the access to this to detainees because you don't know when they're coming out, or going to be released. And so the language that currently exists for the non-driver ID, which is an individual sentenced to serve a period of imprisonment of 6 months or more. I believe that will work and I can run it by them. I've also been in contact with our judiciary team on this, and then the House has scheduled me for Friday afternoon in House Corrections and Institutions on this issue. But I know we need to move the bill sooner. So we can either move it with
When do we have to have that out of here?
you need to have the bill introduced by Friday, which means I think it needs to be out of here by Thursday. We should confirm that with the Senate Secretary.
Yeah,
Actually, I think Saturday is our deadline.
Yes, but you don't have a floor session on Saturday. So you need to have it on the floor introduced by Friday.
I don't
Because
know
the
why we
way-
did it on
I-
Saturday. But
It's
we
because
did.
your rule says January 31st. So it
Okay.
changes from
So-
year to year.
the bill's not gonna be perfect when it's in.
No, and we can always amend it after the
And
fact.
we've got a couple of issues that, when I need from you and a chart. Here's where we are and, we'll get this started and we'll get it introduced, knowing that it's all gonna be, there are a couple that I wanted to have you draft as amendments.
Yes, there's,
So
Yeah.
we need to get in some form where we are and so you and I need to talk about that. Is there anything in the bill so far that anybody around the table has seen that they are just totally deaf on and they don't even want us to talk about?
I'm not in favor of moving to one. One place.
Well, we're gonna have a broader conversation about all of that. If it got drafted with that
That's.
and here's the other thing we can get it drafted and have that put in front of the committee as an amendment. And then it's not in the draft to start with, but knowing that I have asked the commissioner, what's your position? What's your position on the bill that's on the wall I expressed to him today when he says, well, we'll just do something where everybody can print their own plates. I'm kind of not in favor of people willy-nilly printing plates to put on the front of cars, personally. The committee may come down someplace else but I just don't like that idea. And I would have to be convinced of that. They will present their proposal on plates. And then we can have a general conversation about what plates will look like. I quite frankly, just say this to the committee and for reaction from here. I thought the Vermont Strong thing was pretty well done when it was done. And if we did something that was like Vermont Strong, and corrections industry printed those plates too, I believe. Can you remember?
Well, the Vermont Strong, I'm not sure where those came from. They kind of weaned themselves out of that whole deal, haven't they?
The corrections has reduced a lot of, they've gotten rid of almost all of the workshops that they had because
But they still do plates.
I don't think they do.
3M,
I don't think they
3M does. Or that maybe they supply the materials for, they were, but 3M.
Who prints the plates for the?
I don't know, but I do, 90% sure that corrections doesn't do that anymore, because that was at Windsor, actually.
Be something to check into, but I remember, the license plates that you can't read anymore was a bad run from 3M. And then replace them for free if people would just ask. So that's how I know 3M is.
I personally
I'll find
think
out.
some order of somebody going through somebody, if you're gonna have front plates printed, would be a good idea.
Yeah, I think the state should maintain a fair amount of authority in that process. That's our job.
I'm kind of there with you. So I think that's what I'm saying inarticulate. So we need to, you and I need to talk about some chart. What do we need to do and get a pathway on that DMV bill? And I think what I just heard from Andy is we should take the one plate idea, draft it as an amendment, and if we want to add it in later, but it's controversial enough where the draft coming out about the miscellaneous DMV bill will not include that. We had a couple of judiciary issues. What was the third one that we had, was that?
We were concerned about the cost of the towing. Section 13, but I don't think we don't need to include it.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
I think we need to-
but there was a third one. Was it a natural resources issue?
Let's see. You had questions about the insufficient funds. Piece, concerns about that.
Well, that I think we can work out,
There's this, the
The stockages and smuggler's notch.
but we'll put that in
Yeah, yeah.
and we can talk that.
no, it all should be kept in, but yeah. Just take one out from the towing.
Let's just see. I have to update the electronic signatures with language for salvage titles with changes from the department.
I think we had some question about. It doesn't say anywhere that they're salvage titles, and we've got people that feel like they bought a car and then afterwards figured out. So,
That may be more of a operational question for DMV.
they came in and they said that it was. They say something about rebuilt, but I think some people get confused.
I think the deputy, did he say he was gonna come back in with more information?
Yeah.
That's what I thought they said.
Well, so yeah, that's when you get, when you have let's say you've got a flood vehicle, so it's total loss. You get a salvage title, you can basically refurbish the vehicle and then get a rebuilt, title for it. And I don't know how clear it is on the document. Never having had title to one of those vehicles. But that would probably be worth looking at the document and seeing. You could add in additional language in the statute requiring changes to the document. You do have, let's see, the other piece in here, there were questions about, that I raised yesterday about the, purchase and use and sales and use tax overlap for trucks. And the current regulations for that Department of Taxes has. Then that needs to be sorted out. It doesn't necessarily need to be sorted out before your first draft.
No,
That gets.
that doesn't have to, there were a couple of issues, one that had, judiciary pieces.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
And
I,
you're talking about the language you wanted as a,
yep, I would like that separate. There was another piece, I thought it was with natural resources, it overlapped with them. But I'm not sure.
that would be the emissions testing, I think. Just,
But I think what I've heard now is let's take the plates out. We'll do that and have that as an amendment too.
okay,
What I mainly was trying to do is make sure, like in judiciary, that they don't get we don't have to ship the whole bill over there. We
Right.
can just put the amendment in front of them and then we don't have to present the whole bill to judiciary.
yeah, well,
Here's the GUI piece. But we could-
Yes,
yeah,
Those.
the DUI
But
piece,
those that aren't even in the draft.
yeah, those are what we call internally orphan language. So it's something that can be added by the committee later.
yeah,
Not
that's an
official floor
amendment.
amendment. Yeah. So it would be a committee, part of the committee's report if you get green light. from-
That's what I see as an
Yeah.
amendment, and then they don't have to get our whole bill, but we want their opinion.
I mean, I could see us voting out this bill now just so we can get on the floor. It's just a draft, right?
We can introduce it without spending it, or we have to have it out of committee by then.
You have to have it out of committee by tomorrow, so it can get on the calendar for introduction.
So put a
for Friday.
draft together for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then we will vote it out of here and then it'll be sent back to us.
Right, so I can very quickly take what I've got, update it to take out the license plate language if that's the only change. And get that through editing and to Megan by the end of the day, so it can be voted tomorrow.
And then we'll vote that out and then it will come back to us and we can work on that draft.
Right, and then, I know there are other proposals that are out there. I think you have 2 proposals from Senator White on the calendar
Yep.
tomorrow and others. So,
And we can add those on as amendments.
great.
Okay. All right, Patrick,
Do you want me to stick around for this?
I think you can go get your draft ready.
That's kind of what I was at.
Right.
Use your time wisely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
He hangs out at the Montpelier bus stop all the time.
it's a great bus stop. It's a great building, actually.
Shoveling all the time.
Are you sitting on the street in front of there?
I find myself there often, yeah.
You need a hat.
Does it glare too much? For the record, Patrick Murphy, State Policy Director for the Vermont Agency of Transportation. We're just gonna pick up where we left off or thereabouts from last week, and sort of work through any of the questions that you all have or had as you were listening to testimony from other states and consultants and the like. So I'll share my screen here. Can you see this okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. So
Yeah.
what we had started,
The print's pretty small and your colors are kind of fading into everything from an old person's eyes.
Okay.
Can you make it big?
Yeah.
Yeah, make
Yeah.
clear.
There you go.
Okay, so where we had started last week was there was a mileage-based user fee or road usage charge guide that had been developed with the support and direction of consultants that we worked with on our initial design for the mileage-based user fee, CDM Smith. And so this was taking the lessons that had been learned from other states that were early adopters of this and applying them so that other states could learn from it. So we did benefit a great deal from what other states have done that you heard from over the past several weeks. And then we had described sort of the comparisons between those different states and our initial process for coming to the proposal that we did. So we had a road usage charge study that began in the fall of 2021. And that sort of narrowed down from a list of about 7 different scenarios what made the most sense from Vermont. And then from there, we performed more of a technical analysis. So we went through these slides here. And then we're just beginning to get into sort of the decision-making points that we had from more of a technical policy standpoint. So the first was, this was the framework that we used and that helped sort of develop the implementation plan that we submitted to the legislature back in 2024. So rather than read the whole report, there's a lot of information just packed into this slide deck that could be helpful to see where we made different decisions and why. So the first of these is just who would be the authorized agency. And as we talked about last week, the most from the cost effectiveness point of view, the most cost effective was just going with a state administered system. You saw from other states that they use a commercial account manager, in some cases multiple account managers, and that has not produced the kind of net revenue return that we would expect here in Vermont. Sometimes, like I think Utah had or Virginia had talked about as high as 40% administrative costs. And so this was a big piece of keeping things in-house within our existing systems, within existing processes, trying to keep things as simple as possible, also lends itself to making things more effective.
So Patrick, in that 40% number in Virginia, and they're doing, and I think the device in the car in Virginia was like, if I'm correct, $75 comes to mind or something like that. When we get MBUP put in place in January, what will the administrative cost be to our drivers versus what it would cost in like Virginia?
Well, so in the case of Virginia, they assumed that the state assumed that cost. I think you heard in testimony. So it's not being passed through, but what we're expecting for administrative costs on our end of things is somewhere between 3.5% and 5%. And then as you have more vehicles enrolled over time, that number comes down to maybe somewhere around 2.5% to 3%. So higher, of course, than
Pat, you've got a question from Andy.
2 to 5% of what? What do you?
of the net. It's 2.5% to 5% of the overall revenue that's brought in, gross revenue.
Of the fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
So higher than the gas tax, obviously, but significantly lower than some of the more technology heavy solutions that have been piloted elsewhere. So our model more closely reflects what you heard from Hawaii, and for that reason, it is, Hawaii is moving toward a mandatory program, and found that this is for them as well the more cost-effective way to do things. Any other questions on sort of this slide here?
No, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So we performed a technical analysis. We worked with both vendors to understand their capabilities and where there were gaps, what we would need to build off of. And in part, this is how we also came to what our proposal is now for the initial mileage-based user fee. So we already have the odometer reading data that we would be getting from Parsons, who manages the annual vehicle inspections. And then because a lot of the work had been done to upgrade our IT core systems with FAST, we already are able to do the kind of basic things that we would need to in order to implement a program. Where we development work needs to happen is in the being able to have the FAST system, VT trips, receive that odometer data and then appropriately apply a mileage-based user fee.
What is the API stand for? That's the tab.
I would it's a basically I don't know what off the top of my head, something processing, automated processing, something. But it's basically to be able to have the two systems talk to one another, so that when you have odometer reading data that shows up in the Parsons system, that it would be then able to send that to the FAST VT trip system in an automated way, and FAST would be able to receive that and have it integrated, basically.
Okay.
Yep. So
He's got a question.
Just
Sure.
back on the last slide, those procedures seem, it seems doable, which is nice.
hope so.
I'm sorry?
I said, I hope so. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, but it's not like I wasn't sure how we were going to get the revenue, but combining it with the registration process, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And goes on the same invoice. So it's great. Thank you. Maybe I'll talk about that, but
Pat has a question too.
Patrick, do you have a contingency plan for, say, taking the photo of the odometer in case we go to every other year inspections?
We are working through that with FAST. As I understand it, we do have the capability to be able to have vehicle drivers take a photo of the odometer readings and be able to then use that as a way to pay as you go. Because I do want to emphasize on Senator Harrison's last point that the true up is happens at the registration process. So any outstanding sort of balances would happen at the registration process. But the intent behind the fee is to, as closely as we can, replicate the payment frequency of the gas tax, so that people aren't having to pay upfront in one big lump sum. And that was a key part that came out of the initial road usage charge study, that from an equity perspective, we wanted to have people be able to pay as you go. So they weren't hit with that big fee. And so in our plans for the design of this, we intended to have photo capture be a possibility for people so that they could pay as you go. I don't know, I can't speak right now to what the possible impacts would be of moving to a 2-year inspection process. I think we have to get more into the development work to understand the different issues that might come up and how we would work around that. I can't really see all of you, so if you have any questions, just
I think, I don't see any hands. We'll interrupt you when,
Sure. So determining what the subject vehicles were was obviously a key decision. The road use charge study was looking at both electric vehicles, but also plug-in hybrids, and then just highly fuel efficient vehicles as the fleet has gradually become more efficient. It was determined that what made the most sense was starting with fully electric vehicles because they hadn't been paying any sort of fee up to that point, fuel tax at least, or a mileage fee. And so with the plug-in hybrids, there are the complications of not knowing how much someone has traveled on electricity versus gas. And there are just more challenges with making a fairer system at this point when you move to the entire fleet, to whether it be ICE vehicles, conventional hybrids, or plug-in hybrids. So the thought was start small with a group, make sure that we're able to do this well, and then be able to phase some of these other vehicle classes in at a later point. So in terms of rate setting, we've talked quite a bit about this at different points. UVM Transportation Research Center is working on a proposed rate setting methodology. I just reviewed a draft this morning, and so you should have that within the next week or two for your consideration. And if there are follow-up questions, so we'll schedule some testimony for those folks to come in, present on sort of their methodology and what they looked at to come to it. And then there can be some questions back and forth if you need more analysis to try and figure out what you all want to set as a rate to begin the program. But they'll also have some data and reporting on what the estimated or projected impacts will be on households of different types throughout the state of Vermont.
So this was done before we had the EV infrastructure fee. That's why it says there's no existing surcharges.
Yes, yeah, this was sort of the framework that we used to begin working towards that implementation plan that we submitted to you all in 2024. So before there was even any discussion of a flat fee. It's just to give you a sense of the kinds of things that we considered. Yeah.
Just one quick one, Patrick, is the on the other page you mentioned a surcharge, which we were just talking about on electric vehicles. Would that, I think it's $89 now additional. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yep.
So that's the charge you're talking about, not any addition to that?
It would be an addition.
It would be in addition to that.
Well, so the way the language is written in last year's T-bill, as well as how we have thought about it, is that the mileage-based user fee would replace the annual EV infrastructure fee, because it is a fairer method to be able to capture somebody's actual usage of the highway infrastructure.
So now I'm on partial electric vehicles.
The partial electric vehicles would remain in place according to the,
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So that's an $89 surcharge.
right now, the plug-in hybrids are charged at half the battery electric vehicle rate, so they are at $44.50. Yeah.
And that would stay that way.
That would stay that way unless you all decided to change that in any way.
Okay.
You know, there are different ways of, you know, attempting to calculate out what the lost revenue is, and so there, you know, I think the way that the committee came to the EV infrastructure fee was as a bridge to this bridge, where there was a desire not to establish a fee that was so high that it would, you know, be unfair and a lot to take on, right, at you know, all in one lump sum. But with the mileage-based user fee, where you're able to space payments out and more closely reflect how people pay for the gas tax, that we can get closer to what people are actually using in terms of transportation infrastructure. So I think those, to your point, I think those two fees were set intentionally lower than what the, you know, sort of what we're losing in potential revenue.
Okay. I didn't want to muddy the waters, but I'm thinking going forward in the future, I'm just thinking out how you would assess hybrid plug-in that's currently paying $44. You know, if we went universal on this in the future, it wouldn't matter, I guess. But I was thinking just some of those. I'll give you an example. My wife has a hybrid, gets 14 miles to a charge. Don't ask me why, what good it is, but that's what it gets. So it wouldn't matter going forward, I guess. Unless I miss it.
So you can have a plug-in hybrid that, you know, doesn't have a huge amount that can travel on electric charge, but in some places, many of your trips, maybe as many as half your trips are going to be sort of shorter ones, maybe the grocery store or you know, something. So you'd be surprised how much mileage could be done even on a lower level of charge. But other states that have come in to testify recently have also different methods for trying to account for the difference with plug-in hybrids. And we talked a bit about you know, the notion, I think, of fuel tax credits, where you can calculate out what that difference is based on a mileage rating, and then be able to assess a fee accordingly. So we can talk more about that as we get into the statutory framework and what, if any, changes you might want to propose to the plug-in fee.
Go ahead.
And Patrick, are you guys going to be submitting a statutory bill or language for the T-bill, or maybe you already have in-house that would outline some of the stuff?
We haven't submitted it yet to the House. We will be. In part, it's contingent on the direction that the committees want to go in terms of the rate setting. So we're gonna ideally be able to submit rate setting report memo, what you will, in the next week or two, and then you'd be able to have some discussion around that, and that would influence what statutory language we would propose.
If you want my 2 cents, we should only start with EVs and figure that out and not the complications of the plug-in.
Yeah.
And the high mileage, hybrids and stuff. I would wait for that until the second stage.
That is our proposal, that
Okay.
this will start just for electric vehicles. We learned from that initial group of, what's basically about 13,000 right now.
Right.
And then, we can talk more about how you stage a transition, but
Is it 12,000 EVs or does that include the plug-in hybrids?
there's, the latest numbers I think are almost 13,000 fully electric vehicles.
Okay, good.
So we're at about 21,000 plug-in electric vehicles altogether.
And they have to have our approval of the rates to be able to institute this in
That's
January.
right. Correct. Yeah. So we can dive into the rate setting more in about a week and a half or so, when you have time on your schedule. User choice was an important part of the discussions that we had about the design of this. There are some limitations because with user choice, there are more costs. So when you're allowing for the more technology heavy devices either to be installed or to be able to pull the telematics data from the vehicle, that becomes incrementally more expensive. So there was the decision to use just the odometer data, but then also to hopefully be able to provide a photo capture and reporting system to people to be able to pay as you go. It was a really important piece of this to have payment frequencies, different payment frequencies allowed. So some might want to just be able to pay right up front at the point of registration or renewal. But others might just feel more comfortable to pay as you go or to set it up as a monthly payment. So that's what we'd like to be able to provide. And then there's, we want to be able to sort of follow all our existing processes. People should be able to pay using the same methods they are able to use right now for other fees at DMV. And that was, also an important choice to keep everything as worked into the same sort of business model that we have now at DMV. Privacy was a big issue that was identified in our survey work, and for that reason, in a lot of other states jurisdictions, and so that was one of the primary reasons for singling out the odometer based method as our chosen one. But there are things that obviously we have to make sure that we protect as part of the program whenever you have personal data, and so that will be addressed through the design of the program with our 2 IT vendors. And then compliance and enforcement was another thing to tackle that we talked through, and you know, we want to recognize that it's the vehicle that has to come into compliance, not the person. So we ruled out sort of early discussion of being able to suspend licenses, and this was more about if a vehicle hadn't paid for its impact upon the roads, then it made more sense to focus in on the registration process. And so that has a built-in accountability that we talked about, where if there is an absence of a vehicle safety inspection in the last year or two, whatever the time frame comes to be, then there would be the ability to just default to a flat fee that would be at a much higher rate, probably, than most drivers would be paying otherwise. So there was also, you know, in keeping with the rest of the approach, a desire to just follow our processes, be able to have an appeal process if there are sort of disagreements about what the odometer readings are, and to be able to make sure that there was full confidence in the fee that had been applied. And then program evaluation is important, not just for our federal grant, but just to get better at doing this. We explicitly have tackled the smaller group of vehicles to be able to learn from it. And so we have to understand how things are rolling out, be able to address issues that come up, and learn from that for any sort of future rounds or an extension of this to other vehicles. And then there are other, so as part of the process that we'll go through in the design of the program, there will be user feedback to understand how people interact with the system. And then on an ongoing basis after implementation, obviously, to understand, you know, how user-friendly the reporting and paying of the fee is, to be able to make adjustments as needed. So this slide is getting back to that guide that you all were interested in seeing, and how our work has fit into it, and sort of where we are now. So we're really in this, you know, we've done a lot of, and it's not linear, but we've done a lot of the planning and policy work for this, and are very much in the phase of being able to, first of all, get legislation to implement, but then to design and set this system up. And so there's, this is giving you a side-by-side view of Hawaii's process, where they are with things. They have now implemented as of July 1, 2025. But they're still, you know, working on a lot of other elements, including a transition strategy, which is something that we talked about quite a bit. So this is, I think you all have seen this slide before, and it's a simplified way of showing how things will work, where you have an odometer collection through the safety inspections. That record is then updated. That's this piece between the record update and the issuing of a bill is where the API has to be built out, and then the payments collected, and you have the various processes. And it's expected that folks will be able to do this through their My DMV accounts. And it may be just a sort of ancillary result of this work that we are able to encourage more and more folks to use My DMV as a way to do business with the state. You heard this from other states. It's really important that there be a lot of public outreach and education around this. And so this isn't referring obviously to education funds. This is, really making sure that people understand why it is, how much people are paying, why it is important that we're supporting the transportation network. So there's some larger sort of issues that we'll be able to help tackle with the communication strategy that we roll out as part of this grant work, and so that we can help not just with the understanding of why we're moving towards a mileage-based user fee for electric vehicles, but more broadly with some of all the funding questions that you all have been grappling with. And so these are examples of what other states have done, having a landing page, having sort of brief explainer videos to frame the problem, and then having a place where people can go to input their own mileage data and get a sense of what they might be paying under a new fee.
Andy,
Patrick, I just want to put a plug in for real media and local fact-based papers and other radio stations and things, and not just focus on social platforms.
right?
Yes. Yep. So this is just a graphic from
Yeah, I just thought I'd
yeah.
throw that.
I would
Point
agree.
taken.
I do have a couple of local papers that a lot of people, particularly that are older, still read.
We do too.
And I have some constituents that are specifically trying to avoid social media, specifically also for news. And they don't appreciate like the town or the school trying to use that as the way to contact them, because they do still look at the paper or the radio.
I would say my weekly newspaper and Front Porch Forum is used a lot.
Yeah, so the communication strategy will definitely be tailored to our own state, and we do have a strong local media presence, so that will be a part of this.
Is that when you're going to come up with a clever new name for it?
That is, yeah.
When do we get the new name?
Have you all been workshopping this in the meantime?
Yeah.
I started. Yeah.
Patrick, can I just say, this was a great presentation because you had stuff that I guess the committee talked about years ago, but just the how it's been determined and thoughtful, and especially there was a slide about the considerations of the of how the billing would be. I don't remember exactly what the words you used, but I hadn't seen that before, and
Right.
and that was really, really useful. And the more we can, that's a lot to communicate to the public, but that could be a link to something, because I think it would be helpful to the public to know that.
I think with this, we can see the framework that Vermont fit in to move along into this. Did I miss it? So all the collection will be based upon the odometer.
So that is what we're using for the reconciliation, but it is expected that we'll be able to, for those who want to use it and pay as you go, there would be the ability to use, a mobile phone photo capture and then report that to be able to pay for the mileage in between your, your last reporting period, your last reporting data and the current.
So
So,
there,
but everything is the sort of final true up is based on the odometer reading data through the vehicle safety inspection.
so we aren't gonna have a system where somebody can just pay up front on amount.
Well, there could be a possibility of that. Other states have certainly done that, but they've done that in voluntary programs where there was a desire to encourage participation in it. The state of Hawaii is doing that, but only for the first couple of years of their program. They
Okay.
intend to phase out that $50 fee because they recognize that it will limit their revenue potential, and it would be then less just based on the actual usage of the roads and kind of a strange hybrid of things.
And you're not
Well-
proposing that in that same thing. You're just like.
That I do recognize that the committee was interested in the choice that provides. And so if the committee is interested in that as a phase, initial phase-in approach, that might be something to look at. But long-term, it just hurts you
Sure.
in terms of sustained revenue.
Okay,
I would think it would hurt us in the short term too, as soon as it
Well,
starts.
sure. I mean, obviously,
I would think it would depend on where you set it. If you said to somebody, the average miles traveled, we're gonna go at 150% of that. And so you set the fee way high.
Yeah,
But I can
The
see some,
$50 fee for one is very low.
that's pretty low. That's what.
no, I think 50 is too low.
Yeah.
But if you said, we're gonna have the fee at $250, I could see some people going, well, I'm just gonna pay the fee because I don't wanna do anything about collecting any of the information. And so and I'm just gonna pay the flat fee and it's double what they estimate the cost would be.
there is the possibility of just being able to pay something up front, and then you reconcile that against that. Someone is sort of estimating their mileage is going to be above a certain amount, so they're willing to pay a flat fee to begin with, and then it's reconciled at the next registration with what the actual mileage has been. For the Hawaii, I did want to just quickly point, because that was noted by a number of you as being like quite low. And so when you see what our proposal for a fee is, it looks quite high, but there are obviously fewer miles on average traveled in Hawaii, but the way that the state gas tax is set up in Hawaii, you have something like around 18.5 cents or so for the state gas tax. But then the counties have their own gas taxes that they add onto it. So there's the 4 different, counties, and those range from somewhere between like 16 or 17 cents up to as high as in the mid-20s. So the effective tax rate for Hawaii is actually higher than the state of Vermont. And with their mileage-based user fee program, it's a little bit more complex because they have 4 different DMVs that have all their own systems. And so they're going to allow eventually those regional DMVs to also issue a mileage-based user fee. And so there'll be this kind of collection of fees that effectively will be likely higher than what we're proposing. It's just some added context for it.
I only asked the question in that I can't remember what state it was, but they were running very close 50-50, the number of devices in the vehicle versus the odometer. And they said it was 7 times more expensive to have the devices, but people chose the device even though it was 7 times more expensive for convenience. So in my mind, if we set a very high flat rate and said you could do the odometer thing, I could see some people just choosing it because they don't want to be bothered.
Yeah, so I'd have to go back
And if you set the rate high enough, so, you know, if they choose it, that was only my question.
yeah. So my recollection is the state in that situation bore the cost of it, bore the cost of the device. So to them, it, you know, in some ways they might have been getting a better deal because they were accurately counting their mileage, and you know, if it was in Oregon, it was geofenced as well, and so they were just capturing a specific set of miles, but they weren't actually bearing the cost, the much higher cost of administration for the device. So that's just a different dynamic, but I think I have, let me see, I have maybe a slide that
You're not proposing any sort of separate issue, but similar. Proposing to try to address out-of-state travel bans.
Not with a device.
right, could you say that again?
You're not going to propose in this first part, 2 questions actually. One is, you're not thinking of proposing something to deal with out-of-state traveled miles. That'll just be, if somebody lives in Vernon, and they work in Massachusetts and are driving 80% of their miles out of the state, that's just tough on them, right? At this
Yeah,
point.
right. You know, it is just, you know, one of those things that can't be worked out right away because no state has really figured that out except by using those very expensive devices and geofencing things.
Okay.
You know, when,
Sure, that's what I understood. And then my other questions on the federal grant. Are
Yep.
we required to get this started by 2027 or risk losing the grant money, or like what are are there some parameters about that grant to do an MBUF that pushes timelines?
so our deliverable within the grant agreement is January 2027. So we align that with the realities of when we obtained the federal funding and what the legislature directed us to do this past year. That was an amendment to the proposal that we had submitted initially, obviously, a couple of years ago to FHWA, where we had you know, as a deliverable July 2026. So we were able to work with FHWA to recognize the challenges and move the date. But that is what is in the grant right now, a January 1, 2027 deadline.
Okay, thanks.
And that's what we're working towards as well with our vendors and ADS and DMV.
Patrick, I just want to go back to what Senator Frischlich said about the person in Vernon who goes to Massachusetts. I think we ought to be intentional and note our intent to find a way that could effectively address that kind of issue. Just so that people don't think we don't care, because people need to know that this is a reasonable, fair system. So there could be a mechanism that they would pay for that they could put in their car and show where they drive. And or there could also be a statement that they provide saying where they work and how, you know, showing the mileage, because we do have a process in when you buy a car outside of the state. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's in income taxes where you can say that you paid tax to a state and then you get it back. And so there is a process somewhere. I think that's more awkward. But I think it's important that we have that as an intent because fairness matters.
Yeah, and that has been our intent, that we want to get, you know, we're moving towards greater fairness in this initial phase by getting electric vehicles to pay more closely what their impacts are on the infrastructure. We recognize that it's not perfect and it has to evolve, and so that is our intent, to be able to set up a situation where eventually there would be a potential option to sort of limit it to in-state mileage or something to that effect. The other programs that you've heard from over the past few weeks have recognized the huge administrative expense of being able to use the technology that is available right now to account for those in-state and out-of-state miles. And that is why some states are moving more in the direction of an odometer-based method, regardless of how you report that. And so Virginia talked about the same thing. I think Utah as well, that there is, right now with the gas tax, you are paying for, some miles out of state and in state. It's not sort of a perfect system either. With this mileage-based user fee, you're paying what is the equivalent of what a vehicle is paying in state gas tax, but you're not paying that in, the federal gas tax. So it's just recognizing that it's not a perfect system, but it's also that vehicle is still not paying the full amount that a gas vehicle is. And we're going to have to be able to, over time, evolve in a way that does become even more fair in the future.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm mumbling over here about air quality, Patrick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, air quality.
Independently.
We will have some questions about air quality and stuff from you, Patrick. We just had a discussion, started the discussion about inspections.
Mm-hmm.
And what other states are doing, so we may be looking for information from you.
Yep. It might also be good to get folks from Department of Environmental Conservation in to talk.
Now we're gonna do that, but the question I think centers around those states that don't have inspections, that have committed to get the air quality pieces, what they do when they don't have the inspections.
Yeah. So the state has what's called the state implementation plan, which is sort of an agreement with the EPA, and I'm not the best person to go into the details of it, but that is sort of where our current framework rests.
I will have to dig into that, but we're gonna be looking for some information about. There are particular states that don't have inspections that have gone into a plan, and they must have some sort of a system and what do they do?
Sure.
Okay. I
Great.
think you're probably hungry. It's
I'm doing
lunch.
okay. But thanks for having me in. And like I say, we will circle back with you all and Megan when we have a report to share on the rate setting piece.
And that should be within a week or so.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
Well, we'll be looking for that. And I
Great.
think with that, we're gonna go offline.
Okay, take care.
Thank
So,
you.
before we go, I'd like to, let the committee know that the O and D program in Colchester with Green Mountain Transit that whole issue has been taken care
Oh,
of.
wow.
Okay.
The, Milton turned back a bunch of money. They didn't have it in their budget to match, so it's for a year anyway, but still. They had to negotiate because Green Mountain Transit wanted to repurpose that money, but now it's been repurposed in a good way. So all the
So the 89 people that get told they got no service are gonna be
they're happy.
good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was-
Good.
and it's partially due to the discussion in here, a big part of it, I'm sure. And then Green Mountain Transit and the town got together and it was a negotiation for sure. But yeah, came to a good result.
And it was a good learning opportunity.
Yeah, it was because there's no whole about the OMD.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
started-
good. Keep that in your head.
It won't be the last time we talk about it.
Probably not.
Good.
Medical transports are gonna become a bigger and bigger issue.
Yeah.